arid plains west of Anshan, 550 BC. Patches of scrub brush ripple in the dawn wind as dawn fires flicker among scattered goat herders. Beneath these dusty hills, a people calling themselves the Parsua rally behind one royal clan, the Achaemenids, descendants of a shadowy patriarch named Achaemenes. The Persians, for centuries vassals to bigger neighbors, the Medes to the north, the Elamites further west, now settle in the stony valleys and foothills on the eastern flank of the Zagros. Cyrus II, barely 30, rises as king in a world weighted by titanic empires. Out east, Median overlords command an army over 20,000, holding the highland passes and exacting tributes as winter closes the steppes. But change drifts on the horizon. By 550 BC, inscriptions and clay tablets reveal that Cyrus prepares his young men, their bows and horses honed, for more than mere defense or tribute. Within a single generation, the Achaemenids expand from one city-state, ringed by dry farmlands, into an organized state. Herds of sheep and goats, counted in the thousands, move across natural pastures, their movements prescribed by ancient watering rites. The clans foster a code of loyalty not just to kin, but to a figure who will soon be called the King of Kings. The landscape sets the tone for empire. Secret paths crossing semi-arid steppe, a dry land where only those with well-dug cisterns and hard discipline survive. The Persians build irrigation ditches and low field walls, coaxing barley and wheat from a land that gives little. Even as regional powers like the Babylonians and Medes watch, a new organizing strength, the Achaemenid vision, coils to spring. Cyrus and his followers, looking west and north, understand the risks. Only with unity, surprise, and absolute loyalty can they challenge neighbors whose power seems ancient and unshakable. Within 10 years, their gamble will remake the known world. Median Highlands, spring 550 some. BC, hooves pound the late winter mud as Cyrus the Great, forging alliances among fractious Persian clans and shrewd Median nobles, advances on Ecbatana, the Median capital perched atop green hills. The Medes, unwitting in their complacency, field a force of perhaps 40,000 wars, but Cyrus deploys unexpected cunning. He turns Median satraps to his cause, bribes generals, and spreads rumors across the barracks. Within weeks, the balance shifts. Median king Astyages is betrayed and seized by his own men. Cyrus enters the city not as destroyer, but liberator. Clay tablets from the Babylonian archives record the event as a restoration rather than conquest. Ancient sources calculate Median gold reserves at over 1,000 talents, 30 metric tons, shifting to Persian hands. Ecbatana's halls, lined with cedar beams and glazed bricks, now echo with a different court language. In swift order, Cyrus consolidates his rule. Median nobles are pardoned or entwined with Persian bloodlines through hasty marriages, and the Median army, long backbone of western Iran, becomes a key pillar of his own forces. This audacious seizure transforms the Persians from hill tribe to empire. With control of Median lands, Cyrus commands access to the Iranian plateau's ancient trade arteries, reaching east to Bactria and west toward Anatolia. Tax grain, precious lapis, and war horses flow toward his garrison-topped treasury at Pasargadae, a city rising from fortress foundations even as the last spring snows melt. Across the realm, word spreads. The Persians are no longer vassals. In one generation's turn, the House of Cyrus claims supremacy, forging new laws and a new sense of destiny. The torchlit roads of western Iran now bristle with riders bound for fresh campaigns as a new imperial era stirs awake. Sardis, Anatolia, late autumn 547 BC. Gold leaf and limestone shimmer in Lydia's citadel as King Croesus, famed for his legendary wealth, braces behind thick walls after months of Persian probing. The Lydians, expert cavalrymen numbering 20,000 alongside 10,000 Ionian mercenaries, meet Cyrus's disciplined infantry on the Hermus plain. The battle wages over 2 fierce days until the Persians, using camels to spook Lydia's prized horses, break the charging lines and roll up Croesus's defenses. The siege of Sardis commences without pause. Herodotus describes Persian archers loosing storm after storm of arrows by torchlight while sappers scale rough stone, searching for weak points. In barely 14 days, Sardis's defenders buckle. A single Lydian, scaling the citadel walls at a seldom-watched corner, becomes entry point for hundreds of Persian elite. Croesus is captured alive. Later, Persian records suggest a policy of mercy and reward. Lydian gold, counted by the talent, pours into Achaemenid treasuries. Cyrus issues orders to collect and remint coins. The Persian Darius, stamped with a king's archery pose, soon travels the roads as new imperial currency. With Anatolia fallen, Cyrus commands all the Ionian cities on the Aegean, taking hostages, promising lower tribute, and dispatching Persian satraps to govern from coastal palaces. Across the western horizon, news of Lydia's collapse, a kingdom boasting 500,000 inhabitants, resounds from Rhodes to Gallipoli. In less than a year, the Achaemenid world doubles in land and wealth, and Greek traders find themselves under the watchful gaze of Persian envoys for the first time. Sardis's burning palace, dark against the rain, signals a seismic shift in old alliances. Babylon, October 539 BC. Under a low harvest moon, Persian banners rise outside the city's outer wall as the Euphrates glimmers under torchlight. Cyrus's armies, some 40,000 strong, camp for weeks by Babylon's legendary walls, 80 feet high, 60 feet thick, outlasting generations of siege attempts. But the city's fate is settled not by force, but cunning. Persian engineers divert the Euphrates at night, dropping the river's level and allowing troops to wade through the riverbed beneath the gates. The city's defenders, caught in harvest festival and lulled by the vastness of their ramparts, find the Persians inside before sunrise. Contemporary clay tablets from Babylon's business archives register the disruption, the sudden halt to trade, the morning panic spreading from the river district. Unlike typical conquerors, Cyrus halts looting and issues edicts in the languages of the city, proclaiming safe passage and restoration of local temples. As the sun climbs, thousands gather to watch Cyrus's ceremonial entry through the Ishtar Gate. He is crowned King of Babylon, King of Sumer and Akkad, swearing before priests and scribes to honor native gods. Administrative tablets from October-November 539 BC name new Persian officials assuming charge. Babylon's scribal population, numbering 5,000 or more, is kept in office as the tax granaries and navy yards continue without pause. The conquest marks more than a political change. Ancient canals and royal roads, previously fractured, are repaired under Persian supervision. Temples closed by Nabonidus are reopened. Within weeks, the city's wheat surpluses and silver mines feed an empire stretching from the Indus to the Mediterranean. An empire of over 25 million subjects, each now marked by the seal of Cyrus the Great. Babylon's central temple precinct. Winter 538 BC. Artisans press reeds into soft clay, inscribing the decree of a new type of king across the surface of a barrel-shaped cylinder. The Cyrus cylinder, just 22.5 centimeters long, carries the Persian king's words in Akkadian, declaring not only his conquest, but proclamations of religious freedom, restoration of shrines, and the return of deported peoples. As the text dries and hardens in the mild Chaldean wind, scribes copy its message onto tablets destined for distant satrapies. The cylinder stands apart from the triumphalist steles of Babylonian and Assyrian tradition. Instead of boasting about destruction, Cyrus's inscription offers mercy. I returned the images of the gods, and gathered all their inhabitants, and returned to them their dwellings. In practical terms, this means dozens of temples, from Jerusalem to Ur, reopen or receive funding. Jewish returnees to Yehud, listed in the Ezra scroll as nearly 50,000, journey home carrying Persian satrapal passports. Policy ripples outward. By the end of 538 BC, Persian rulers issue legal reforms in at least 5 languages: Elamite, Old Persian, Akkadian, Aramaic, and even Egyptian, ensuring that local judges, priests, and merchants can read their rights and obligations. Tribute rates are fixed, temple economies stabilize, population censuses register numbers upwards of 1 million in Lower Mesopotamia alone, according to contemporary ration texts. The cylinder itself becomes a symbol, not just of Persian tolerance, but of pragmatic governance. New records from Borsippa and Susa echo its formula: conquer, restore, rule by recognition. Over time, this approach lets the Achaemenid Empire flourish across immense diversity, uniting over 50 ethnic groups and 30 conquered kingdoms under a single, supranational bureaucracy. As sunlight glints off the baked clay in Babylon's archives, the seed of an imperial idea, rule by decree, tempered by clemency, roots itself from the Nile to the Oxus. The empire, unlike any before, seeks to bind its subjects not just with iron, but with law and recognition. Memphis, Lower Egypt, summer 525 BC. The Nile's annual flood recedes to reveal a landscape ripe for conquest as Cambyses, son of Cyrus, leads a vast column of Persians and Medes through Sinai's furnace winds. The Persian army, reportedly 50,000 strong, including camel corps, charioteers, and Greek mercenaries, carries siege towers, scaling ladders, and portable pontoon bridges to breach the delta's tangled waterways. Facing Pharaoh Psamtik III, Cambyses leverages naval superiority. A fleet of over 200 war galleys plies the mouth of the Nile, outflanking Egyptian defenders. The Battle of Pelusium, according to Herodotus and Egyptian reliefs, is fought among papyrus bogs and crumbling mud brick towers. Persian arrows pierce the cramped, sun-baked alleys as Cambyses' engineers deploy shields painted with Bastet and other cat deities, reportedly provoking Egyptian hesitation, unwilling to risk angering their gods. After weeks of furious assault, casualties rise. Persian losses number in the low thousands, while Egyptian records testify to 6,000 men fallen and as many taken prisoner. In late May, Memphis falls. Surviving high officials are paraded through palace courts. Rows of granaries and sacred lakes pass to Persian satraps. The conquest of Egypt is more than military spectacle. It marks the first time a foreign power rules the Nile since the new kingdom collapsed 3 centuries earlier. Persian surveyors count 2.9 million people for tribute rolls, and architects set about expanding canals and reinforcing dikes to secure future tax harvests. Within months, Cambyses wears both Persian costume and the double crown of pharaoh, depicted in relief at the Temple of Bastet in Bubastis, beside hieroglyphs marking Cambyses, king of Upper and Lower Egypt. The Persian imperial reach now touches Africa, stretching from the highland fortresses of Susa more than 2,000 kilometers to the first cataracts of the Nile. For the Achaemenids, new customs, gods, and riches flow into the heart of an empire, claiming supremacy from the steppes to the Mediterranean delta. Pasargadae Palace, spring 522. BC, shadows lengthen across the stone terraces as Cambyses lies dead, some say by suicide, others by assassin's blade, leaving the world's largest empire leaderless. In the confusion, a figure claiming to be Bardia, Cambyses' brother, seizes the throne. But royal insiders whisper this Bardia is an impostor, a Magi priest named Gaugamela, using palace intrigue and the emperor's absence to seize power. The empire lurches. Satrap after satrap, from Egypt to Bactria, refuses to submit. By summer, new revolts burn through Babylon, Media, and beyond. In Persepolis, Darius, a distant cousin and royal guard commander, conspires with 6 fellow nobles, striking before dawn. In a flurry of bronze swordplay, Gaugamela the usurper is slain in the royal harem's shadowed halls. Darius, quick to claim legitimacy, marks himself king by the grace of Ahura Mazda, the god of light and truth, on stone tablets dating to 522 BC. With control tenuous, Darius unleashes a campaign to snuff out rebellion. Army musters ripple across Persia's heartland. At least 19 major revolts break out over 12 months, as confirmed by the trilingual Behistun inscription chiseled into a mountain high above the main highway. Darius's scribes record the defeat of Elamite and Babylonian rebels, some boasting the capture of 4,000 prisoners in a single campaign. Order is painfully restored. Darius rewards his co-conspirators, reshuffles satrapies, and issues new decrees to hundreds of regional officials. By the next spring, the Persian imperial structure seems even tighter, with Darius installing trusted inspectors, his eyes and ears, to report directly to him through coded relay posts. The empire's unity, no longer anchored in lineage alone, is founded on fear, loyalty, and the sword. Zagros foothills near Susa, 518 BC. The clang of chisels and the thrum of ox-drawn sledges resound as Darius commissions the building of Persepolis, his vision for an imperial center to awe subjects and rivals alike. Construction stretches across more than 120,000 square meters. Laborers haul limestone and timber from Lebanon and the Elburz as early as the second year of Darius's reign, their numbers swelling to 10,000 at peak season. The terraces rise, cut into the mountain's flank, with walls up to 20 meters thick, while gold coins, newly minted darics, weighing about 8.4 grams each, flow to pay foreign stonemasons, engineers, and artists. Relief sculptures line the processional ways. Delegations from 23 satrapies bring gifts: ebony from Nubia, Bactrian camels, Ionian silver goblets, each ethnic group pinpointed by subtle differences in beards, costume, and script. The Apadana Audience Hall, with its 36 ringed columns soaring 20 meters high, becomes the essence of imperial spectacle. Aramaic and Old Persian project orders across the realm's postal network, summoning timber, stone, and tribute for decades. Persepolis is more than a palace. It is a carefully coded statement of unity through diversity. Policy directives and ration texts, dated to Darius's 13th year, note the distribution of feasts for up to 5,000 officials and workers at Novruz, the Persian New Year. Roaring fires, trumpeted announcements, and great Persian banquets fill the terraced courtyards with life. Coin production ramps up. The daric and accompanying silver sigloi set the new Persian standard, accepted from Egypt to Bactria, smooth and reliable, unlike the uneven coins of conquered realms. By 515 BC, Persepolis gleams on the high plateau, a beacon for governors, envoys, and traders, threading their way along routes soon to span the width of Asia. Royal Road, spring thaw. 510 BC, sun-bleached gravel crunches under boot and hoof along a highway stretching nearly 2,500 kilometers from Susa east to Sardis, as Darius formalizes the arteries of his empire. Couriers, mounted on swift Nicaean horses, famed for their stamina and speed, cover over 250 kilometers per day, swapping mounts at relay posts every 25 to 30 kilometers. This network's reach is astonishing. From Babylon's sun-baked squares to the coastal bazaars of Anatolia, information and gold, decrees and draft orders move faster than anywhere else in the ancient world. Herodotus later marvels at these couriers' legendary pledge: "Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers," and imperial archives confirm over 100 paradises, well-stocked way stations, studded at steady intervals with food, fodder, and watchmen. Messengers bear signet rings and wax tablets, communicating in at least 6 languages. A directive sent from Darius in Persepolis, ordering the mobilization of provincial troops or grain quotas, can reach Lydia in less than 2 weeks, a feat that outpaces even the Egyptian and Assyrian capitals of old. The road itself is a marvel of engineering. Stone markers and carved milestones track distances, while bridges of brick or timber cross rivers like the Halys and Tigris. Palace grain quotas sent to Sardis, inscribed on clay inventory slips, estimate that 500 tons of wheat traverse the route annually to supply garrisons and royal retinues. Along the way, merchants, soldiers, and pilgrims jostle with officials, their goods ranging from lapis and silk to casks of Persian wine. By 500 BC, these arteries radiate not only wealth, but a constant beat of imperial authority, orders from Persepolis, resonating outward with stamped, waxed certainty. In this world, the Achaemenid king's word moves with the speed of hoofbeats, binding the farthest provinces together over wind-blown roads all the way to the Aegean. Babylon and Susa, autumn 518 BC. Tension pulses along the riverbanks as satraps, provincial governors, dispatch tribute and reports to the new King Darius, even as smoldering rebellion flares within the empire's heart. Darius divides his lands into 20 satrapies, each ruled by appointed nobles, responsible for raising troops and funneling tax grain, silver, and livestock toward imperial treasuries. Administrative tablets from the early 5th century BC detail each province's quotas. Babylon alone delivers nearly 1,000 talents of silver yearly, while India's satrapy pays in gold dust and ivory. But power breeds unrest. That same year, the Babylonian Heartland, once the world's breadbasket, erupts in revolt led by a pretender king. For nearly 6 months, the city holds out, fielding an estimated 15,000 defenders behind old ramparts. Darius's crack troops, Persian, Elamite, and Median, tighten the siege, cutting canals to flood the rebels out, as recorded in the trilingual Behistun relief. After a final breach, the city falls. Sources tally thousands killed or captured. Mass executions in the palace courtyard, and new satraps installed by the conquering king. This grim efficiency is repeated elsewhere. Satraps in Egypt, Bactria, and Lydia face lesser revolts, each put down within months by rapid deployments from Persepolis. Darius's new order emerges: loyal governor, trusted military leader, and a parallel network of royal inspectors funneling evidence of corruption or insubordination back to the throne. Gold, barley, horses, spices, even Indian muslin flow from satrapal treasuries to Persepolis, codified in thousands of ration and audit tablets, concrete data on an empire learning to channel its vastness into order. By 517 BC, the satrapal system, though harsh, is the backbone of Persian power. Each province, watched by spies and rewarded for loyalty, becomes a gear in the machinery of rapid, centralized rule, its successes and failures stamped and counted for the King of Kings. Ionian coast, spring 499. BC, lamps flicker in Miletus as Greek city leaders plot rebellion against their Persian satrap, sparking the Ionian revolt that will ignite east-west conflict for generations. Milesian triremes, joined by dozens from Ephesus and Smyrna, torch the Persian naval base at Sardis, sending smoke curling over Anatolia. Within weeks, Darius's military response is underway. By early summer, over 20,000 Persian troops, drawn from neighboring Lydia and Phrygia, deploy to the coast. The revolt gathers force. By 498 BC, the cities of Chios, Byzantium, and Cyzicus are embroiled, with rebels fielding a combined fleet of 353 warships, remarkable numbers pressed into naval skirmishes along the Aegean. Persian counterattacks, led by veteran generals Artaphernes and Dorisses, swiftly retake most Ionian towns by late 497 BC. The Persians show little mercy. Recaptured cities see wide-scale crucifixion or enslavement, documented in Greek and Babylonian annals. Despite horrific costs, casualty estimates rising over 10,000 for the Ionians, the Persians adapt, enlisting Greek mercenaries and strengthening coastal satrapies. Darius orders the minting of emergency silver coins in Sardis and Cnidus to pay for cavalry and supply more ships. Through the summer of 494 BC, the climactic siege at Miletus grinds on for nearly 4 months. City walls crumble under Persian battering rams, and the city falls by late autumn. By winter, the surviving Ionian population is deported inland, most notably to Susa and the Tigris, with ration lists totaling 5,000 households sent into Persian service. The Achaemenid grip tightens across western Anatolia, but as news travels over wind-blown seas, the first roots of deeper Greek-Persian enmity are sown, foretelling future storms beyond the Aegean horizon. Marathon Plain, northeast Attica, September 490 BC. Dust swirls across dry ground as 25,000 Persian infantry, ferried from Asia Minor in 600 triremes, face a lean Greek force of just 10,000 hoplites. Darius's generals count on a quick victory. Athenian walls are thin, local allies shaky, and the Persians have crushed larger armies in Lydia and Ionia. But dawn reveals an unexpected charge. The Greeks sprint nearly 1,500 meters, bronze shields flaring, before Persian archers can thin their ranks. Clash echoes across the bay, spears crunching and arrows whistling. Persian troops, many unarmored or lightly clad, break under the weight of the Greek phalanx. Surviving Athenian inscriptions credit the enemy with 6,400 dead, compared to just 192 losses among the Greeks, a staggering disparity in casualty rates, confirmed in Herodotus's tally and recent forensic studies. The defeat reverberates from Mycenae to Persepolis. Datis, the Persian commander, collects survivors and torches the retreating fleet before Greek skiffs can close in. At the water's edge, Persian galleys crowd together for escape. Livestock teems in the sand. Thousands of horses meant for cavalry landings, now abandoned. The Persians retreat, leaving behind siege engines, weapon caches, and even polished Anatolian shields, later scavenged by Athenian farmers and displayed in city temples. For half a generation, the balance tilts. Persians remain dominant in Asia, but feel for the first time the exposed limits of their reach into western Greece. Although the empire's vastness absorbs the loss, echoes of defeat at Marathon ripple through palace halls in Susa and the garrison stations along the royal road, warning that Achaemenid expansion is not without cost and resistance. Abydos on the Hellespont, spring 480 BC. Dawn mist rises as King Xerxes commands the largest army assembled in the ancient world. Herodotus estimates a colossal force of over 100,000 men, while some Persian records hint at even greater numbers, swelling with engineers, bakers, archers, and the immortal spear-bearers, Persian elites so named because their ranks never diminish. With 674 ships and over 3,000 supply carts packed for the march, Wooden pontoons and lashed boats form two vast bridges spanning the swift current, connecting Asia to Europe in a day's colossal engineering feat. Horses and men, chariots and camels pour across this floating road for a full 7 days, while royal heralds proclaim the march to destiny. Xerxes' imperial retinue is a spectacle. Susa's gardeners bring pomegranates for the royal table, while Babylonian scribes chronicle supplies. Wheat shipments topping 3,000 tons for a single week, enough to feed the host city of Thebes for a month. Soldiers from 23 satrapies, Egyptian archers, Scythian cavalry, Indian war elephants, file in distinct regimental dress, their ranks stretching over 30 kilometers of road. The Immortals, clad in scaled armor, golden torques, and carrying spears with silver pommeled butts, form the shimmering spearhead at the heart of the advance. Supply lines extend as far as Persepolis. Relay posts, granaries, and fodder depots ensure a daily ration for every Persian, Lydian, and Median in the king's employ. The march westward is a living demonstration of Achaemenid might, a moving city of over 250,000 souls if camp followers, cooks, and engineers are counted. The army's progress is so vast it requires Persian planners to calculate grain deliveries 4 months ahead, using data from at least 3 languages inscribed on travel permits. As the miles pass beneath the Immortals' sandaled feet and the Hellespont's current flows beneath the wooden causeways, Xerxes' westward march toward Greece is both audacious logistics and imperial theater, a procession of iron, silk, and the promise of war. Thermopylae Pass, northern Greece, midsummer 480 BC. Heat shimmers on the narrow strip between mountain and sea, where Xerxes' unstoppable Persian host meets 7,000 Greek defenders under Spartan king Leonidas. For 3 days, wave after wave of Persian infantry, archers, lightly armored Medes, and the gleaming Immortals crash upon the Greek phalanx, hemmed in by cliff and salt water. Herodotus records that the pass, barely 15 meters wide at its tightest, funnels nearly 100,000 Persians into battle lines compressed by spear and shield. Persian losses are immense on the first and second day. Greek spears and discipline drive them back, inflicting casualties in the thousands by nightfall. Furious, Xerxes orders his archers to blot out the sun, launching volley after volley. Some sources claim over 1 million arrows fired, their black cloud shadowing the desperate struggle on the stony pass. On the third day, a Greek traitor named Ephialtes reveals a mountain path, flanking the defenders and spelling doom for the remaining Spartans and their allies. As morning mist lifts on the 4th day, Persia's finest peltasts and cavalry overrun the Greeks, cutting down Leonidas and his 300 Spartans in a final defiant stand. After the carnage, the pass is choked with Persian dead, bodies stacked 10 high in places, according to contemporary observers. Xerxes pauses to bury his own casualties and impale Leonidas's head as a warning, but Thermopylae's sacrifice echoes out across Greece and Asia, seeding legend and defiance in the days to come. With the pass taken, Persian banners sweep south toward Athens, but the story of Thermopylae, how a handful withstood an empire's greatest host, will survive in marble inscriptions and epic verse, shaping a world's memory for centuries. Straits of Salamis, near Athens, early autumn 480 BC. Sea haze lifts to reveal Xerxes' armada, nearly 1,200 triremes, oared by over 200,000 men, anchored across the Saronic Gulf. Confident in numbers, Persian admirals grid the bay, plotting to overwhelm the Greek fleet of just 370 ships. Greek trickery springs the trap. False intelligence lures the Persians into the narrow, winding straits of Salamis, where their long lines buckle and collapse. At dawn, rams crunch into hulls amid a crescendo of arrows and shouts. Greek ships, smaller and more maneuverable, twist between waves and obstacles, punching holes in Persian vessels that struggle in the tides and churned water. Herodotus estimates that by midday, over 300 Persian ships are sunk or burning, their bronze rams glinting beneath crimson waves. Many crews drown, cut down by Greeks, or forced beneath the hulls of their own sinking ships. On the bluffs, Xerxes surveys the carnage from his throne, carved from marble and carried by courtiers. Persian losses mount into the tens of thousands. Charred timbers drift onto the rocky coves, and bodies wash ashore, scattered along Attica's pebble beaches. The king's scribes note the capture of key admirals and the loss of entire Egyptian and Phoenician contingents. 30,000 sailors gone in a single day. Retreat is swift. Surviving Persian triremes cut east across the Aegean, many badly damaged and leaking, while fires flicker on the horizon into the night. The defeat at Salamis devastates Persian hopes of swift conquest, forcing Xerxes and much of the army to withdraw. Though land battles remain, Salamis marks the moment the world's mightiest fleet shatters against cunning, courage, and geography, leaving Greece unbroken and Persia reeling. Plataea Plain, central Greece, late August 479 BC. Dust flares beneath 100,000 Persian sandals as Mardonius, Xerxes' general, holds the high ground east of the Asopus River, facing an allied Greek force of about 80,000. For days, skirmishers and cavalry raid supply trains, and both sides endure thirst as water sources are poisoned and seized. Persian archers, the same who blackened the sky at Thermopylae, loose volley after volley, but the Greeks, rallied by Spartan and Athenian hoplites, tighten their shield wall in the morning haze. The final clash unfurls in a thunder of bronze and shouts. The Greek phalanx spearheads a charge that smashes through the Persian center, breaking Mardonius's elite guard and turning the lines into chaos. Herodotus counts Persian dead at nearly 50,000. Greek losses, by contrast, register just over 1,500, a testament to training, discipline, and the resilience built in months of hardship. On the same day, news reaches the camps of another catastrophe. At Mycale, across the Aegean, Greek forces rout the remainder of the Persian fleet beached on the Ionian coast, burning ships and slaughtering retreating marines. The aftermath is grim for Persia's expedition. Routed soldiers flee north, many dying in ambushes or hunger along the roads through Thessaly. Greek victors parade Persian armor and standards through city streets. Captured gold and cavalry horses are distributed, and the spoils, dozens of tons of equipment and coin, elevate local economies for a whole generation. Xerxes' ambition to add Europe to his empire evaporates at Plataea. Though Persian governors control most of Anatolia for years to come, the defeat at Plataea, combined with Mycale's fiery collapse, brings an end to any realistic hope of conquering the Greek mainland and signals the high watermark of Persian imperial reach to the west. Persepolis and the Fertile Crescent, early 470s BC. With the western frontier quelling, the grand palaces of Persepolis spring alive as gold and tribute pour home from every satrapy. Darius and then Xerxes sponsor building campaigns on a scale unseen since Egypt's New Kingdom. New terraces, audience halls, and storerooms swell the city's footprint to over 125,000 square meters, while sculptors record victories and delegations in endless friezes. Imperial accounts from these years count inflows of silver at 700 talents, over 23 metric tons a year, alongside tin, ivory, and textiles stacked in storerooms cut into the bedrock. Engineers eyeing the high palace towers turn their ambitions outward. Darius's Great Canal, a marvel of ancient engineering, links the Nile to the Red Sea, its completion connecting Africa and Asia by a navigable waterway over 200 kilometers long. Inscriptions boast of ships from Phoenicia and Greece sailing up the canal at Suez, boosting royal revenues and slashing the costs of grain and military supply to ports as distant as Persepolis and Babylon. Waterworks, royal gardens, and artificial lakes blossom across the fair's heartland, driving crop yields up by 30% and supporting a population that now swells above 200,000 cows in Persepolis, Susa, and the surrounding valley. The capital itself becomes a beacon for the empire's elite. At New Year's festivals, scribes record up to 10,000 guests convening for weeks of feasting, sacrifice, and tribute display. Tribute, filtered through satrapal accountants, yields annual food distributions topping 300,000 liters of grain, oil, and wine to craftsmen, officials, and visiting dignitaries. Commerce, ritual, and power fuse, and Persepolis, lit by the flames of 1,000 cressets on its terrace, stands unrivaled as an ancient center of wealth. In this season of Persian renewal, the focus shifts from war and conquest to the craft of governing, connecting, and illuminating an empire across 3 continents. Darius's vision, hammered in stone and irrigated by rivers old and new, spins the machinery of Persian prosperity, one built as much on order and ambition as on the fortune of conquest. Susa, Persepolis, and Babylon, 460–425 BC. Under Artaxerxes III, the Achaemenid Heartland pivots from the ruin of war to a generation of pragmatic stability. Negotiations with Greek city-states reach their height in the Peace of Callias, c. 449 BC. Imperial emissaries ink treaties and agree on tribute, halting decades of coastal conflict and restoring Persian rule over most of Anatolia, while granting autonomy to the remaining free Greek cities. Population registers from Susa and Persepolis in these years list increases from 120,000 to nearly 400,000, fueled by migration, war captives, and thriving trade. Engineers unleash fresh waves of innovation. Networked quinat waterworks, stone-lined tunnels excavated over kilometers of hard clay, pulse water from highland aquifers to Persian farms and villages, tripling crop yields in the Fars and Kerman basins. Qanat construction is exacting, digging to depths up to 30 meters and extending 2 to 40 kilometers. Thousands of laborers employ bronze picks by torchlight. Newly discovered ration tablets record over 1,000 men working at a single site near Yazd, producing 5 million liters a year per channel. The administration's complexity multiplies. Scribes, more than 20,000 strong by Artaxerxes' reign, track inventories of silver, barley, wool, and workforce down to the household, taxing even the smallest goatherder and wool dyer. Imperial capitals like Susa blossom as metropolises. Archives record bustling marketplaces, Greek and Phoenician traders hawking goods in Aramaic, and stone courtyards stacked with Assyrian, Elamite, and Egyptian stelas to signal cosmopolitan pride. Across this tapestry of peace and progress, Artaxerxes governs through tolerance, spectacle, and taxation. Even as whispers of future conflict brew beyond the Zagros, the middle decades of the 5th century BC see the Persian imperial idea crystallize. A world where irrigation, negotiation, and steady administration anchor the fortunes of millions, stabilizing the empire between East and West. Imperial estates from Susa to the Nile, 5th to 4th century. BC, beneath the eaves of Persian palaces and sunlit storehouses, royal women wield powers matched only by the empire's greatest satraps. Inscriptions and Elamite ration tablets reveal that Queen Atossa, mother of Xerxes, and Queen Parysatis, wife of Darius II, control vast landholdings, some spanning 1,800 hectares, supporting thousands of livestock and hundreds of agricultural workers. Their seal impressions and signatures flicker across hundreds of surviving economic documents, contracts for the delivery of grain, wine, and sheep, orders for the release of silver reserves, instructions for the supply of palace banquets and religious festivals. These women do more than steward estates. Atossa, daughter of Cyrus the Great, is credited in Greek sources with advising policy, including marriages, punishments, and the selection of royal wives for strategic unions. Persepolis, famed and feared by contemporaries, commands palace guards and funds military expeditions, including her support for her son Cyrus the Younger's failed Anatolian campaign. Satraps and generals compete for their favor. Records from Persepolis' central archive name dozens of royal women who receive annual allowances of 40 talents of silver, 20,000 liters of wine, and first pick of tributes ranging from Indian textiles to Egyptian perfume. Coins struck at Susa and Babylon sometimes bear marks or ciphers associated with prominent queen mothers, signifying their approval in the minting of silver sigloi or distribution of precious goods. Women direct temple-building projects, arm contingents of female archers and cavalry, and adjudicate legal disputes for villages under their control. At festivals, these high-born women process alongside kings, draped in imported linen and near-mythical jewelry, inscribing their presence, both mortal and monumental, on the empire's daily life and lasting memory. Persepolis, Apadana Terrace, Spring Equinox c. 470 BC. Drumbeats and sung prayers echo through forested columns as the Persian court gathers for Nowruz, the imperial new year. 10,000 nobles, envoys, artisans, and dancers climb broad staircases, each step flanked by sculpted bas-reliefs showing rows of tribute bearers from 23 satrapies: Arabs with dromedaries, Lydians with ingots, Nubians offering ivory tusks. In the main hall, 36 fluted columns, each soaring over 20 meters, support a cedar-timbered ceiling alive with gold-inlaid animal capitals, bulls, lions, griffins, gleaming in the sunlight and smoke of ceremonial fires. Rituals of unity and hierarchy dominate the day. Pahlivans, imperial champions, demonstrate archery and wrestling, while royal scribes note gifts ranging from 150 talents of silver to perfumed oil, lapis, and dozens of horses. The king appears atop a gilded platform, his presence magnified by towering columns, as subjects bow and cast offerings at the monarch's feet. Chants in Old Persian and Elamite rise over the procession. Feast tables creak under dried figs, pistachios, honey cakes, lamb, and pomegranates hauled from across the empire. The Apadana's columns do more than dazzle. They serve as the silent sentinels of ceremony, their shadows marking the hours of an empire defined by spectacle and order. Reliefs on the column bases depict not just Persians, but Medes, Bactrians, Ethiopians, Sogdians. A visual roll call of empire in stone, signaling the king's claim to rule all peoples under the sun. As night falls, oil lamps set the painted capitals aglow, and chrysanthemum garlands sway in the desert dusk, Persepolis' columns standing witness to a pageantry unrivaled in any court, ancient or modern. Itzechu, royal caravan route from Susa to Bactria, early 4th century BC. Camel trains and painted wagons wind across the dusty steppe, linking the pulse of commerce with the bright eyes of the king's spies. The Achaemenid King's Eyes and Ears, highly trusted inspectors dispatched by the royal court, travel incognito, dropping in on satraps to monitor taxation, justice, and military muster, their reports sealed and rushed back along the royal road by express courier. Tablets from Susa to Sardis reveal this shadow network's depth. hundreds of inquiries conducted annually, with corrupt governors stripped of office or quietly executed in secret. Luxury goods crowd the highways. Persian silk, spun near Sogdiana, glides west by the bolt. Lapis lazuli from Badakhshan and cinnamon from India fill warehouse manifests in Susa and Babylon. Invoices describe dispatches of 40,000 bolts of silk and 10,000 kilograms of spices in a single year, enough to perfume the court for months or brighten royal wardrobes through every New Year's feast. Satraps, responsible for both provincial trade and their own security, offer up the first fruits of every caravan, while Persian soldiers patrol the routes in armor shipped from Anatolia, checking traders' tax permits and weights. Communication is relentless. Bilingual edicts, stamped in Aramaic and Old Persian, dictate exchange rates, inheritance rules, and festival dates, so that a merchant from Persepolis and one from Egypt can haggle over prices or relay court rumors with equal clarity. The king's informants file reports about unrest, overland raiders, even shifting alliances among Greek mercenaries. Nothing escapes the empire's vast intelligence web. By 400 BC, Persian commerce, bureaucracy, and espionage intertwine. The empire moves not only with armies, but with the ebb and flow of traders, spies, and tribute bearers. Its governance as much a matter of secrets and silk as it is of steel. Lower Egypt and Babylon, early 4th century BC. Embers of resistance flicker across imperial maps as subject provinces once again test Persian power. Egypt, restive after a century of heavy tribute, erupts into full revolt in 404 BC. Native kings like Amyrtaeus seize Memphis and drive out Persian satraps, rallying armies of 30,000 and closing Nile ports to Persian tribute collectors. Simultaneously, Babylon's priesthood fans unrest, protesting tax hikes and religious interference, while fomenting uprisings among the river's canal towns and temple laborers. Persia answers rebellion with both force and guile. Over 15,000 Persian cavalry, along with mercenary Greek hoplites, some of whom recall tales of Marathon and Salamis, crush Babylonian rebels after a brutal campaign in 482 BC that results in thousands killed or deported. But Egypt, bolstered by Athenian ships and funds, weathers siege after siege. Persian attempts to retake the Delta falter for nearly 50 years. Their garrisons hold up in isolated strongholds along water-laced frontiers. Tax records and ration lists from the era show Persian revenue from Egypt plummeting by 80% between 404 and 343 BC, straining the empire's capacity to pay troops and officials as far afield as Susa and Bactria. Meanwhile, Anatolia groans under Persian taxes, and city-states on the Aegean edge weigh the cost of loyalty. The memory of earlier Greek triumphs fuels fresh alliances, while Persian king's eyes report on treacherous satraps and murmurings of sedition. The Achaemenid world, once locked by royal decree and swift couriers, now simmers with unrest at its furthest borders, pushing kings and generals to rely on mercenaries, fortresses, and old prestige in hopes of keeping the vast tapestry intact. Memphis to Persepolis, 358–338 BC. Artaxerxes III ascends the shaky throne amid the empire's deepest fractures, a realm battered by near-annual satrapal revolts, foreign plots, and lost provinces. With characteristic ruthlessness, he purges his brothers, nephews, and any rival court faction, as cuneiform tablets from Persepolis note a brief flurry of executions and confiscations that consolidate royal authority. Shoring up his base, Artaxerxes III sets his sights on Egypt, the richest lost satrapy, assembling an invasion force swelling to nearly 100,000 by 343 BC. The reconquest is brutal and systematic. Persian armies, reinforced with Greek mercenaries, some led by generals who had fought against Persia a generation before, dispatch Egyptian defenders at Pelusium and Bubastis while laying siege to Memphis for months. Surviving records register over 70,000 prisoners deported, temples stripped, and boundary walls razed as the Nile Valley is brought to heel. Artaxerxes orders a scorched earth policy against resistant strongholds, sending grain prices soaring up the delta. The empire reclaims control of the Nile's annual flow and its vital tax base. Shrinking Egyptian population registers note over 1 million inhabitants, now firmly under Achaemenid satrapal watch. In Persia, Artaxerxes slashes through palace intrigue, quelling conspiracies with targeted assassinations and deploying the king's eyes to root out treachery in distant satrapies. Construction resumes at Persepolis and Susa with modest new reliefs and treasury buildings, even as old glory fades. His brutal efficiency brings a flash of stability. Yet, as his 30-year reign closes, pressures from the rising Macedonian kingdom in the west and restless nobles in Babylon cast a long shadow, hinting that the era of Persian dominance stands on brittle ground. Plain of Gaugamela, northern Mesopotamia, October 331 BC. Fog lifts to reveal Alexander of Macedon's army, less than 50,000 strong, arrayed against Darius III's vast host, said to number over 100,000 with scythed chariots, Indian war elephants, and cavalry from every satrapy. Darius marshals his forces behind bristling defenses, summer dust swirling around siege engines and command tents stretching nearly 5 kilometers across. Yet, as the sun climbs, the Macedonian phalanx and companion cavalry execute a feint, and then a sudden break. 1,800 elite horsemen, led by Alexander himself, punch through a gap in the Persian line where the royal standard flutters. Chaos erupts. Darius flees the field. Once again, the heart of the Persian defense cracks under shock and panic, leaving generals and infantry to rout or perish. Aryan and Babylonian sources tally Persian casualties upwards of 40,000 in a single day. Macedonian losses, by contrast, stand under 1,500. The road to Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis lies open, barely defended by scattered conscripts and fading loyalty. Within months, Alexander enters each imperial capital. Babylon's bronze gates swing wide. Susa yields silver, gold, and jewel-encrusted armor, nearly 180,000 talents, 6,000 metric tons of treasure seized. Persepolis opens last in spring 330 BC. In an orgy of violence, the great audience halls are looted, and fire, set either as drunken revenge or cold calculation, consumes 40,000 square meters of palaces, sculptures, and painted cedar beams. Marble fragments, cuneiform bricks, and blackened capitals rain to the terrace floor. The Achaemenid line ends as Darius III, betrayed and hunted, is assassinated by his own men along a remote Bactrian streambed. From the Zagros to the Indus, the empire collapses. Local governors submit to Alexander or fall in last stands as satrapies crumble. Persia's heart and power passes to a new conqueror. Its legacy, immortalized in ruins and memory, will long outlive the flame. Stony terraces of ruined Persepolis, dawn to dusk. Present day. Wind whispers around toppled columns, their fluted shadows tracing the memory of vanished courts and bustling markets. Though the fires set by Alexander's men have long since gone cold, the stone blocks, some inscribed with trilingual decrees, others carved with the parade of nations, still bear silent witness to the Achaemenids' vast imagination. Gardens once fed by Connaught trickles and shaded by cypress echo in today's tangled weeds and the broken outlines of water channels carved 2,500 years ago. Archaeologists and travelers alike measure the scope of imperial ambition. Persepolis's audience halls, able to seat over 10,000. Susa's treasuries, whose silver, gold, and textiles rivaled any in the world. Roads stretching 2,500 kilometers from Sardis to Susa, binding together 50 million souls at its peak. Persian column capitals, double-headed bull and lion, now stand as silent icons for architects in Paris, Delhi, and Washington. Even in modern law and language, shadows of the imperial Cyrus cylinder persist, extolling a king's ancient promise of respect for creed and custom across borders. The grandeur did not just vanish with empire's fall. Royal gardens, stone apadanas, and the memory of Persian satrapal order shaped empires from Rome to Mughal India and inspired revolutionaries thinking of human rights. As sunlight flickers through the forest of ancient pillars, the dust and glory of the Achaemenids endure in every shadow, every inscription, and every retold legend, echoing as deeply today as in the courts of kings.